Hey y'all.
Hey folks,
So we are just a couple miles from finishing.
we're up at Gudy's Rest right now, overlooking Junction Creek, and Durango is just east of us now.
Yeah, so our plan to go walk is just about finished
Yep,
and we're tired.
yep.
It's been about 2 months.
2 months tomorrow. Yeah, no, 2 months exactly.
I don't know, I couldn't exactly
Yeah.
remember like what day
Yeah.
we started. When people ask us, I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Just
We
like,
wanted to take more too. We wanted to do a detour into the Wiminooch and stuff, and that would have taken another half month at least to do that. And we that have other projects that we have going on, and we're like, okay, because I tend to overshoot things, and I was like, let's go as far and long as we can, and
overall though, we did
600 miles at least.
Yeah, I think that CT proper is like 480.
486.
Yeah, and so we did extra stuff and a lot of scouting, a lot of other trails to kind of just see
Yeah,
what was there and
yeah, we did
do some planting.
the west side of the Collegiate, so that was 80-ish miles
Extra.
plus, so
Yeah, so we're excited, and it's wild right here. It's so much warmer. We've
Really
been in a
warm.
lot of like
wow.
treeless areas that are kind of cold.
Yeah,
Recently, so
yeah,
we're going back into summer.
Happy
So
to be in the high desert foothills again. And we wanted to just briefly reflect on our experience, and I think we could talk a lot about it, but we're going to just try to briefly share about what we learned
at least
on this.
at what we're thinking about at this very moment.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
We'll
but just-
definitely reflect more after we're done, and yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you learn, Gabe?
I was just about to ask you what you learned.
Well, I've been thinking a lot the past couple days on like whether this has been a success or not, and I think what we were envisioning going on this walk was to learn about the lands, to learn about the impact that people and climate change has on the land, at least from what we can witness walking, and also to plant what we can where relevant of native first food plants. But for me, I've always been just like this lifelong like studier and learner and curious person, so I feel like I've learned so much on this trail just about what grows where, why, how. I mean, we saw so much OSHA yesterday and the day before, like carpets and carpets of OSHA, and we've been seeing a lot of sweet cicely, for example, and I'm like, wow, these, someone was like, there's only sweet cicely in one spot around here, and I'm like, that's not true at all. So we've been seeing it in a lot of places, and OSHA is very locally abundant. I know that plants like that, people question whether they should be harvested, at least on a commercial setting. And for me, just getting out here and seeing what's here, it gives me something. I mean, my mind will hold that in, the imprints of the plants, and my heart too. So I'm really excited for how to integrate that moving forward, and after I rest too. So
Yeah.
What about you?
As somebody who has been kind of like a self-studying naturalist in training for a few years, I think that doing a slower thru-hike is a really great way to doing a thru-hike through the perspective of a naturalist and with the curiosity of learning ecology is probably one of the best ways for me that I've ever had to like really get an in-depth learning. So like we think about going from every day your stimulus being like really cultural stimulus, like propaganda, advertising, corporate logos, to every day your stimulus being like, OSHA umbels and like, the patterns of the different kinds of conifer barks and like all, and just like the sounds of birds and the bird calls, the bird alarms, the succulence of a lily that you can distinguish, you know, a type of wild onion from just a blade of grass over and over again every day. You know, you kind of start to reprogram your unconscious mind to that awareness, you know. So like we have this cultural awareness, obviously, when you're in the cultural bustle of certain, you know, cultural things, but when you come out and spend time with the land, your awareness starts to shift, you know. And
can't help but like see things, and
yeah,
when you're really paying attention.
yeah, and that was cool. I think that was really awesome. I've learned a lot. And as for the planting, my original vision was like, we're gonna plant so much, and we did plant a lot. We planted so many bundles of seeds. Every resupply we had a couple bundles of seed, a couple pound bundles of seed. We planted most of them, and towards the end, we actually ended up sending, on the last maybe quarter of the trail, we ended up sending back seeds. And that doesn't mean that this was a failure by any means. I think this was actually such a success because, one, both of us now have a deeper understanding of like the tapestry of what Colorado is in connection to the bigger picture. Two, the historical, almost like botanical archaeology of Colorado. You know, like instead of looking for arrowheads, we're looking for culturally significant first food plants in certain ecologies, and then we learned from that, and then we planted a lot, and we planted so much. And one thing that I learned is that you can't short scouting locations for plantings, and really just knowing intimately the landscape that you're participating with. And now I feel like I have a deeper understanding of this, you know, part of the Southern Rockies than I ever have. The geology, you know, and the geography, the culture, the history. And I think all of that, for me, you know, it started as let's go plant and learn, but then it started to evolve and unravel into this project of like, oh, we're learning a lot about the cultural, historical, ecological, political, economic inseparability of all these things here. You know, all these things, past, present, and future, are really non-linear. You know, we walked through old railroad grades. We crossed streams that were red from mine tailings,
Or poopy from cows.
Or, you know, with COVID, a lot more impact from people just trying to get out of the city. You know,
We definitely noticed a lot more people in the resupply towns than what you said you experienced the last time you did the trail, right?
yeah, I wasn't nearly as busy. And
Some of the places we were thinking of would be big planting locations, like the Cochetopa Hills, which a lot of it is like sagebrush country, which is ideal for planting. We just didn't because, one, it was super hot and we were just trying to get through it. Two, there's so many cows, and a lot of the cows were then over wilderness so-called boundary lines too, where they weren't really supposed to be. And we just felt like we weren't sure if like it would be worth planting where the cows they're already trampling so many of the plants.
Yeah,
and
they're very, very overgrazed.
And that was a huge section of an area. We sent ourselves so many seeds for that section, but then we were kind of just like nervous about putting so much energy into planting an area that's really overgrazed.
Yeah.
The water was barely drinkable.
So realistically, think about it like this. So we had days that were like 20-ish miles between water sources, and it's like in the 90s, and it's also windy, and it can go from being 90 degrees and sunny to like thunder and lightning come in and be really stormy. And we have a backpack on. We pack a little heavier. We have seeds in the backpack. And so to do that is a little bit more of an ordeal to like, and we did this for over 300 miles. We stopped, we took off our backpacks, we planted, we bundled the seeds back up, put them in our backpacks. We tried to carry the seeds just like with us, you know, but the trail, your timing on the trail is all about like water, storm, weather, and just how tired you get after a while. And so we kind of just accepted like, okay, maybe the Plantigo is not the best model for strictly planting, but for scouting, planting, yes, because I think it's always good to like just plant as you go anyway, but to do it like just deeply intensive planting.
Since we were on a traditional through hike route too, there's this energy of the finishing the walk, even though we said in the beginning we didn't care if we didn't finish, but there's this momentum energy. And I think if we had like camped in one place for a few days, which we actually did do some rest days out there, and those were days where we also do more planting, but like camp somewhere for a couple days, then walk, and then camp somewhere for a few days and then walk, which is not what people do on through hikes, would be a fine model as well. Or base camping, which we decided we would prefer ultimately, is to do like base camping where you can have all your stuff in one place and then walk out every day into different locations, and then you really get to learn that place more too.
Like I like having a cooler of bacon with me when I am in a place for a while, so I can base camp and plant a lot.
Well, we're spending so much energy and not getting to eat. Like, I mean, I feel really like I'm ready to bulk up.
Yeah, we're really tired of hiking.
Bulk up after this because I just can't get enough calories. So there's like some days we're really excited about the added things of our project, you know, like the journaling and I've been doing photography and also the and sometimes the plant lists and the planting and stuff like that. And some days we're just like, I just want to get to camp and lay there or put my feet in the water.
It's arduous sometimes. Like we'd come upon these amazing spots to plant, but we only had a little bit of water left and there's no shade anywhere. And we have like 10 miles to get to water, and we're like, okay, we marked it on the GPS, like this is a spot we could come and camp at and plant later, but right now we're just not going to do it because we're out of water, it's really hot, we have a ways to go till the next water, and you know, and so that's just the reality of it. I think that was a really valuable learning experience with that.
Just what it takes to move every day on the land, and what it takes of your body and mind. But I think overall we were successful. I mean, we GPS pointed probably over 50 planting locations, or in addition to that, like potential future planting locations or cool campsites that
and
we
just
liked,
like
you know,
cool plant spots that we found some really special plants. You know, like yesterday we found these big patches of glacier lilies, and we gathered all the seed, we planted it there in situ, and then we were like, let's mark this spot so we can come back in future times, and just so we know this is a good spot for glacier lilies. So scouting is so important. You cannot skimp the scouting work to find planting locations and just to know what's going on. Like, you got knowing place is just really important, you know.
So Gabe probably wrote twice as much as me, but we filled up a bunch of journals on this walk of like observations and also things we're going to research after we're done that we're hoping to maybe gather in the next 6 months or something into a little zine or booklet or something, where it's a combination of our observations and writings and plant lists, and also like research tangents on all of these pieces, these webbed pieces of this walk for us, like historical, ecological, cultural pieces that will be fit in there somehow. And
maybe it'll be like there's like the Colorado Trail guidebook, like the data book that you take with you. Kind of like a guidebook. So we think that it would be cool to make like an alternative, almost like, I don't know, decolonized Colorado Trail kind of thing. I don't know. Just
or at least like, here's a whole other perspective you would never have known, you know, about this. And about this walk, you know. And for us, we're excited to kind of like what is the history of that creek? Why is it orange?
Yeah.
when did that mine, what's up with that mine, like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
why are there so many of this type of plant here? Why are all the spruces and firs dead for
Yeah.
like literally 50 miles straight?
Yeah.
What's going on? Like,
Yeah.
so
We're witnessing, like, I think that through this we're kind of witnessing climate change and the human influence on that in action. When I did the trail 5 years ago, I walked through these areas where, and even though I really wasn't paying that much attention, I noticed that all the dug firs were healthy. And then when basically the whole east side of the collegiates, and then most of the ways to here, we've noticed that the dug firs are starting to look really sick. Like the tips are withering and turning brown, and a lot of them are like starting to die. And so we're like really witnessing, doing this, paying attention, and really asking, whoa, why is this happening? What are all of the factors contributing to this? And like, how are we a part of this? And
no wonder there's so many fires. I mean, I know in California,
yeah.
there have been recently a lot of fires too, but we're walking through these areas, we're like, man, we would be screwed if lightning struck this area right now because of how many dead trees there are.
There's already a lot of fires in Colorado right now, and we definitely were realistic with each other about like
what would happen if we were caught out there and where we were and stuff.
Yeah,
so
because basically from Highway 50 by Salida all the way to Highway 550 by Silverton, all the trees were dead. It was like all beetle kill pretty much. And if that caught on fire and we happened to be out there, there wouldn't be a way to escape that. And just seeing like
it possibly will be inevitable at some point that will burn in mass, but
and also just getting the perspective on the land of the consequences of human abuse to the land, to the abuse of the people that knew how to tend the land, and these catastrophic wildfires, these things that are happening that we're taking really personally as a human species. As I walked the Colorado Trail, I saw like, we are suffering the consequences of our actions and of our inaction to be good stewards on the land, and it like, my sympathy is more for the land, and more for my sympathy is more for the land, because like these lands are neglected, and then we walked through hundreds of thousands of acres of dead spruce forest, and I'm like,
and then
asking the question, like, what are we gonna do about this? Like, are we just gonna, how is this gonna be a thing? Like, this is a serious question I don't really hear people talking about.
Or the polluted creeks and rivers the last 50 miles was really disturbing to me. The animus, which Gabe said that last time he did the trail, that was right after the Gold King mine spill, which was like possibly done on purpose, releasing of this massive amount of sludge stored inside of a mountain, toxic sludge that went into the animus river, which is the drinking water for Durango and maybe other places. And it's like, you can still see that.
When we were at the upper animus,
you wouldn't want to drink out of it.
It's like dead, there's no like life on the bottom of the river. It's just like an orange biofilm, and all the rocks, that happened like 5 years ago, and all the rocks are still like neon orange.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's like, I don't know how to feel about it when I approach those places. Like, I just feel grief, and also like wanting to still honor that river and its life, and gives me more drive to do something, or to even like bring more awareness to that. A lot of people walk by, they probably have no idea that happened there. So
because this is the world that our generation is inheriting, and we are going to eventually be passing on a world to the people that aren't born yet, so doing this walk with that perspective in that context of like, how can we find creative ways to take responsibility today? How can we find creative ways to take responsibility today and be good stewards, and like take and set the next generations up for success,
Well, it's almost 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep walking so we can meet our friend who's picking
That's
us
right.
up
We just wanted to do that, so.
from Goody's Rest.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We should be having potentially some podcast episodes coming out soon too to finish up
Yeah.
our sort of audio journal entries from the trail too.
Yep.
So look for those, and see y'all.
Take care.